Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here, back with another action figure review. After an incredibly stressful election night, we've thankfully made it to Wednesday. So, while officials continue counting the ballots, us wrestling fans can forget about politics for a few hours and enjoy another episode of AEW Dynamite on TNT. It's the go-home show for Full Gear, so it should be a good one. As always, if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more pro wrestling and action figure content. Now, we're headed into my custom dailies place, so for a recap and review, let's take it over to the action figures. Dynamite opens with Dasha interviewing Chris Jericho backstage. He brags about how Jake Hager won his MMA match last week to stay undefeated. MJF cuts him off. Sensing a little tension last week, he wants to prove that he belongs in the inner circle, so he's glad Chris will be watching his match tonight. Jericho says he's been thinking, and there's still something missing from MJF's total package. The rest of the inner circle is crazy and would do anything to win, but Max seems to lack that killer instinct. In fact, Chris calls him soft. Jericho comes out to the usual chorus of Judas as he's set to do commentary for MJF and Wardlow's match against his inner circle compatriots Sammy Guevara and Ortiz. As you'd expect, he's antagonistic towards JR and Tony Schiavone the whole time. In true heel fashion, MJF lets Wardlow start and only tags in once the big fella has done all the heavy lifting. He isolates Ortiz in a surprising show of tag team psychology. Eventually, Sammy gets the hot tag though, knees both men in the face, and then runs wild with a double crossbody and back-to-back planchas. Between this and what he's been doing on Being the Elite, his subtle babyface turn continues. There's a stare down between MJF and Sammy as they try to impress each other with dueling kip-ups, but it ends with Sammy nailing a GTS. Then he and Ortiz hit a standing shooting star and standing senton respectively on Wardlow, only for him to no-sell it and take them out with a Tower of Doom spot. He hits Ortiz with an F10, but it's broken up by a Sammy splash before Guevara takes out MJF with a dive to the outside. Suddenly, he's attacked by a chair-wielding Matt Hardy in a Serpentico mask. That allows MJF to sink in the salt-of-the-earth armbar on Ortiz and pick up the victory. MJF walks towards commentary screaming, "I'm soft, I'm soft." Then he spears Jericho through the backdrop and starts pummeling him. Hager and Wardlow have to separate them, but instead of being angry, a sinister smile comes across Jericho's face, convinced that his insult finally motivated MJF to show that killer instinct. We get a pre-recorded interview with Tony Schiavone at Kenny Omega's temporary residence in Jacksonville as he prepares for his match against Hangman Adam Page at Full Gear. When Kenny's tournament opponents went down, he could have accepted buys and gone straight through to the finals, but since AEW strives to be a sports-based product where wins and losses matter, he thought it was only right that he face and beat replacements to earn his shot. Now he takes on his former partner, which, contrary to popular belief, wasn't a foregone conclusion. Regardless, it's still a tournament at the end of the day, which gives him the advantage. Omega claims that he's destined to win and become the next AEW champion. Miro is accompanied by Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford as he makes his singles debut on Dynamite against Trent, who is flanked by Chucky T and Orange Cassidy. It was revealed online that Trent was actually Miro's mentor back in FCW, so tonight he plans to make Miro his young boy once again. Miro hijacks the introductions and says Trent's mom never taught him any manners, which predictably sets off Trent and starts the match. The best man dominates throughout though. When Trent does attempt some offense, he's easily tossed out of the ring. Kip Sabian tries to get involved, so Chuck throws him into a barricade. They fight into the back while Orange Cassidy lazily blocks Penelope Ford from following. During a commercial, she slaps the sunglasses off his face, so he calmly steals hers and puts them on instead. But when he goes to put his hands in his pockets, the entire Dark Order attacks. They help John Silver deliver a big boot before the referee kicks them out. That perfectly sets up their match at Full Gear, which was recently moved to the main card. Trent continues his valiant effort at a comeback, hitting a tope con hilo and a DDT, but it only gets a 2 count. He tries a springboard, but slips on the rope and gets caught with a Machka kick. Miro sinks in the game over and picks up the win. Chuck and Kip come running out afterwards and continue fighting. Miro takes out best friends and starts to cut another promo about Trent's mom when suddenly Orange Cassidy appears and hits an orange drop to help the baby faces stand tall. In a mirror interview, JR talks to Hangman Page, drink in hand. His speech is noticeably slurred as JR asks how he's handling the responsibility of a main event level pay-per-view match. Page says he always knew the tournament was going to end with him and Kenny. He feigns confidence as he claims to know all of his former partner's moves. JR sees through it though and calls out Page's drinking as a sign of nerves. Hangman admits that he is nervous because this is his first shot at the AEW title since failing to become the first champion. If he loses this time, all he'll have is his whiskey. Taz comes out to complain that he sat outside Tony Khan's office for 3 hours only to learn that he's too busy with people actually involved in Full Gear. So Taz decides to say his piece on Tony's TV show. See, Taz actually believes in the rankings. But while Brian Cage is rightfully ranked number 1, Ricky Starks isn't ranked at all, despite winning 10 of his last 11 matches. And, as Ricky points out, neither of them has a match at Full Gear. Playing off Cody's philosophy of do the work, Taz says his guys are getting worked and guarantees an FTW presence at the pay-per-view. It was announced yesterday that Scorpio Sky came into contact with a positive COVID case, so his match against Shawn Spears had to be postponed. Instead, we're getting Private Party versus the Young Bucks. Yes please. Matt Hardy brings out Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, but he's jumped by Sammy Guevara on the ramp as revenge for earlier. That sends Hardy to the back. Matt Jackson comes out limping during the Young Bucks entrance and sells his leg injury throughout. It's an amazing match which serves as a great preview of the Bucks' new attitude heading into Full Gear vs FTR. Even though it's fairly short, there's a ton of high-speed, flippy maneuvers that would take all day for me to recap. So if you haven't seen it, make sure to remedy that ASAP. When the Bucks go for the Meltzer driver, Nick gets stopped by Isaiah, leading to a fun series of roll-ups. In the end, a BTE trigger spells doom for Private Party as the Young Bucks take momentum into Saturday. Or do they? FTR jumps the Bucks from out of nowhere and hit a shatter machine on Matt. They put his leg in a chair again while Tully forces Nick to watch. Hangman and Kenny make the save without acknowledging each other. Then, framed in silence behind the chaos of a shouting match between FTR and the Bucks, they respectfully fist bump before Page turns around and exchanges a few heated words with Omega to close out the segment. Building without coming to blows? What a concept! Similarly, next is a confrontation between AEW World Champion Jon Moxley and his challenger at Full Gear, Eddie Kingston, where it was announced that if this gets physical, the match will be cancelled. Kingston kicks Tony Schiavone out of the ring and immediately gets in Moxley's face, noses touching. He asks if Jon thinks this is a game, then threatens to destroy him and take his title on Saturday. Eddie claims he needs to show the belt to his mother so he can explain why he never gave her grandchildren. Because it's the only thing that matters to him. It's the only championship in the sport that means so much, and Mox is holding it. That's why Eddie had to sell out and become everything he hates, and it's why Moxley can't save him. Moxley takes the mic with Kingston still clinging on. Once again, he talks about the lack of loyalty in this business. He doesn't trust anyone because he's been burned so many times. But he never thought he'd get burned by Eddie. He was so happy when Eddie signed his AEW contract. He was even happier for Eddie's mother, Ruthie. Moxley sat at her kitchen table and promised to look after Eddie, no matter what trouble he caused for himself. Kingston turns away, unable to even look at Jon as he confesses that he broke that promise. Moxley continues, saying that after 18 years, Eddie is finally getting his shot at a world title, but deep down, he knows he's gonna lose. And when he does, he'll realize that he couldn't keep the promise he made to his mother either. Kingston snaps and is so intense this feels like a shoot. He screams that Mox better get ready to kill him. Mox simply responds that on Saturday, Eddie will say the words, "I quit." I've said it before, the best way to build a championship caliber feud is to avoid physical confrontation at all costs. Compare the nuclear heat from this war of words to the ice-cold Randy Orton-Drew McIntyre feud with its endless matches and skirmishes. The brilliant end result is, although I can't envision Kingston as the world champion, after that promo, I also can't picture a world in which he ever says I quit. In his much anticipated return to AEW television, a video package seems to show that Pac has gone insane during 7 months of isolation. Random footage of him standing in the English countryside is interspersed with shots of him sitting silently on a leather couch while his hallucinations anxiously pace behind him. He tells us not to worry though, because he's been abandoned before, and he used the time in lockdown to get even stronger, faster, and more obsessed. Alex Marvez confirms that next week the Natural Nightmares will take on the Butcher and the Blade, but before Dustin can say anything, the Bunny walks in and tells QT, "Hey, thanks for all the gifts, but your credit cards are maxed out." The Butcher hits Dustin with a kendo stick, and the Blade attacks QT as we cut to the ring. Brandy is concerned by what she sees, but has to focus on helping her new friend, Red Velvet, take on Nyla Rose. It's a complete squash, with Nyla hitting a beast bomb. Then, she sits up Red Velvet's limp body, mockingly bows to Hikaru Shida, who's standing in the audience, and delivers the champ's signature Tamashi running knee strike for the win. Afterwards, Vicky Guerrero makes fun of Red Velvet for aligning with Brandy, who she now calls the CBSO, or Chief Bullshit Officer. She thanks Tony Khan for setting up Nyla's championship match at Full Gear, then struts over to Shida, bragging that Nyla is going to win, and yells, "Excuse me" in Japanese. Shida attacks until referees separate her and the Beast. Once again, the women's title match is nothing more than an afterthought on a pay-per-view card. Honestly, before this segment, I forgot Shida even had a match on Saturday, let alone who she was facing. AEW needs to fix the women's division stat. As if we needed any more hype, there's a gloriously hokey video montage of Kenny and Hangman set to "Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone" by Cinderella. The replacement match for the buy-in pre-show is announced. Serena Deeb will defend her NWA World Women's Championship against Allison Kay. I guess that means there's technically 2 women's matches now. Yay? In one of his classic black and white promos, Darby Allin runs over a guy in a Cody mask with his car. Then, we see him brooding in the nosebleeds again. That brings us to the 6-man main event, as Dark Order take on Cody and the Gun Club, who are undefeated but only now making their Dynamite debut. As the match begins, Excalibur explains that Gun Club and Lee Johnson have officially joined the Nightmare family. Interesting. Even during the picture-in-picture, I couldn't take my eyes off John Silver. You never know what crazy thing he'll do next, just that it'll be hysterical. After the commercial, everything breaks down. Cody throws Silver into the crowd, and Billy hits 10 with a big boot, while Austin hits a crossroads on Colt Cabana and a quick draw on 10 to pick up the victory. I can't believe they let Austin get the pin. That is so cool. The rest of Dark Order surrounds the new Nightmare family as John Silver sneaks up behind them with a chair. But Orange Cassidy makes the save and hits him with an orange punch to further tease their Full Gear match. Then, Cody grabs the mic and delivers one of his trademark passionate promos, exposing all the lies he's been hearing lately. Contrary to what the internet may think, TNT would love to have someone as talented as Darby Allin as their champion. Heck, if the circumstances were different, Cody probably would too. After all, he's the one who recruited Allin against the other EVP's advice. They were so unsure of him that Cody had to wrestle Darby himself. Now the problem is, no matter how much Darby lies to himself about wanting the ace belt, the truth is that he isn't the ace of AEW. With that, Cody holds up his title, and we fade to black. Honestly, I'm so hyped for Saturday already that I didn't even need this show. That's because AEW actually knows how to book feuds that build anticipation. Then, they use the go-home show as the final hook for the pay-per-view that convinces viewers to lay down their hard-earned money in order to see the conclusions. To that end, AEW has been priming fans for weeks now with captivating, high-stakes storylines that seamlessly coalesced into a mouth-watering card. Again, we didn't need tonight, but they gave it to us anyway. It's almost like they knew a wounded country needed a temporary escape, and they provided it by delivering a fantastic show from start to finish. I'm so excited for every single Full Gear match, and I cannot wait for Saturday. My only nitpick is that there were too many references to Tony Khan. I'm glad he's not an on-screen heel authority figure like the McMahons, but lately they've brought up his name too much, and it feels so lazy having every questionable decision explained away with "Tony said so." Alright, that'll do it for AEW Dynamite and the Go Home Show for Full Gear. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. In case you didn't see, I uploaded some new content this week, including an unboxing and a fig hunt video, so definitely check those out. I'll be back on Friday with my Full Gear predictions, and then again on Sunday with my review of the show. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography over on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. If you haven't seen last week's Dynamite review, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.